The Routeburn Track. Known as New Zealand's most scenic multi-day trek, while most people take 3 days and stay in the huts, I took on the challenge to complete it in just 2, camping off-trail to explore some unreal spots along the way. This is my full-on overnight mission through wild weather and some of the most rugged and breathtaking alpine terrain I have ever seen. It was a cloudy morning as I boarded the bus from Queenstown, headed to the start of the Routeburn. To save money, I skipped the pricey huts and decided I would camp near Lake Wilson. I arrived at the Routeburn shelter, ready to kick off this epic adventure. From the beginning, the rain was on and off, and it stayed that way for the entire trek. Still, it didn't stop the amazing views from revealing themselves along the way. The first section of the track led through dense rainforest, with several suspension bridges and the occasional creek crossing. Although the water was cold, it was also incredibly clear. I reached the first stop, Routeburn Flats Hut, a perfect spot for lunch with stunning views all around. But as impressive as it was just a taste of the breathtaking scenery yet to come. The next section marked the beginning of the climb, where I gained my first major bit of elevation. It was also the first time I was rewarded with views from above. I arrived at the next stop, Routeburn Falls Hut, named after the cascading falls just above it. This is where most people spend their first night on the track, but for me it was only the halfway point to my campsite. I had a quick bite to eat, explored the hut and nearby waterfall, then continued the climb upward. This is where the scenery truly became next level. The rain and low cloud didn't take away from the views. In fact, they made the landscape feel even more dramatic, especially for photos. As I climbed higher, Lake Harris finally revealed itself, perched in the mountains and surrounded by dramatic alpine terrain. It was one of the most scenic moments so far and roughly the halfway point, and the spot where I would veer off and head towards my campsite for the night. So that's the way I've just come on the Routeburn Track. That's the way to continue it. And this is the way to the Valley of the Trolls and Lake Wilson. Straight away the path became much less worn, which really slowed my pace, especially with the weather taking another bad turn. I eventually reached the valley floor near the lake and made my way into a landscape that felt like it was pulled straight from Lord of the Rings, which probably explains the name. Walking through the Valley of the Trolls was absolutely unreal, but now it was time to cross a few streams and make my way up to the spot I planned on camping for the night. I ended up gaining even more elevation than the main Routeburn Track, which meant trekking uphill through snow. Coming from Brisbane, crampons didn't generally ever cross my mind, but I definitely wish I'd packed some. Although it was fun to trek through snow again, it was a slow, slippery and exhausting climb.
Nearly there. Come on.
I finally made it to Lake Wilson. At just over 1400 metres, it was the highest, coldest and windiest point of my trek, with heaps of snow patches and an incredible view of the valley below. After trying to pitch my tent for 45 minutes, I just couldn't get the thing to stay up. The wind was relentless, and even if I managed to pitch it properly, I knew sleeping through that weather would be a nightmare. Frustrated and a bit defeated, I made the tough call to pack up and head back down in search of a more sheltered spot. Thankfully, it wasn't all bad. At least I got to take the express route by sliding down the snow. Woohoo! As I returned to Lake Harris, I found a beautiful flat spot out of the wind. It had been a very long first day on the track, and I was more than ready for dinner and a cold beer. I took a moment to relax in my chair, then set up the tent just before nightfall and crashed for the night. I woke up the next morning to similar weather. I skipped breakfast and packed up my gear and made my way back to the main trail. Alright, time to go. Start the second and final day.
main trail.
It felt good to be back on a decent path, and before long I reached the highest point on the Routeburn, Harris Saddle Shelter. Unfortunately, the off-track route up Conical Hill was closed due to an avalanche risk, so I headed inside the shelter and enjoyed some brekkie and a coffee instead. After breakfast, I made use of the hut's toilet and started making the descent to Lake McKenzie. The fog picked up the closer I got, but soon enough the stunning lake appeared through the mist. I reached Lake McKenzie and McKenzie Hut, where most trekkers spend their second night on the trail. I didn't stick around for long, as I could tell time was starting to slip away from me.
It says that the divide is 4 hours away, and it's 11:48, and I have to be there by 3:15, so I've got under 4 hours to get there, so I better get a move on.
The divide marked the end of the trek where I'd be catching the bus out. I had to pick up the pace though, as I was cutting it very close. But just when I thought the worst of the rain was behind me, it returned, and the fog made another appearance too. I was starting to think the best views were over when Eland Falls appeared. It is easily one of the most impressive waterfalls I've ever seen. As I passed Lake Howden, I knew the final challenge lay ahead, one last climb over the hill. And that's when it hit me. If I wanted to make the bus on time, I'd have to start running.
Take it away.
With just minutes to spare, I reached the Divide Shelter, the official end of the Routeburn Track. The past 2 days have been absolutely incredible, but also seriously exhausting. Without a doubt, this was one of the best overnight hikes I've ever done, and I'm stoked to have completed it. If you ever find yourself on New Zealand's South Island, this one's a must. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next adventure.